He sold homes that were never going to be built. $1.3 million Chinese families paid deposits for apartments that didn't exist. The money vanished. The buildings never came. This is macro scale, the truth behind the money. In April 2026, a two-day trial in Shenzhen ended with one of the most stunning guilty pleas in financial history. Hui Ka-yan, once Asia's richest man, with a peak net worth of $42.5 billion, admitted to embezzlement, securities fraud, fundraising fraud, and bribery. He faces potential life imprisonment. The company he built, China Evergrande Group, had accumulated $300 billion in debt, more than the entire GDP of Portugal. It inflated revenues by $78 billion across just 2 years. It pre-sold apartments to over 1 million buyers, then used those deposits to fund new projects instead of building the homes people had already paid for. Evergrande was delisted from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange in January 2024 after its shares lost 99% of their value. And for years, while all of this was happening, PricewaterhouseCoopers signed off on the accounts. The fraud was larger than Enron and Luckin Coffee combined, and almost nobody saw it coming. Hui Ka-yan grew up in rural Henan province in devastating poverty. His mother died when he was a child. He studied metallurgy, worked in a state-owned steel mill. Then, in 1996, at age 37, he founded Hengda Real Estate, later rebranded Evergrande, in Guangzhou. His timing was extraordinary. China's government had just abolished the old housing allocation system, creating a massive new private property market overnight. Evergrande's model was simple and brutally effective. Pre-sell apartments before they were built. Use the buyer's deposits to fund construction of the next project. Use the next project's pre-sales to pay for the one before. A perpetual debt machine wrapped in luxury branding. By 2010, Evergrande was listed in Hong Kong. By 2017, Hui was the richest man in Asia. The company operated in 280 Chinese cities, employed 2,000 people directly and 3.8 million indirectly. It had a football club, Guangzhou FC, a bottled water brand, an electric vehicle division, and a theme park business. Analysts praised its scale. International banks extended credit. The model seemed unbreakable. China's property sector accounted for roughly 25% of GDP. Evergrande sat at the center of it all. Too big, everyone assumed, to ever fall. The first serious crack appeared not in a courtroom, but in a spreadsheet. In 2019 and 2020, Evergrande reported revenues that Chinese analysts and international short sellers began to find deeply unusual. The company was growing faster than any market conditions could explain. A Hong Kong-based research firm flagged the anomaly. Evergrande was booking revenue from projects that hadn't delivered units, from cities where permits hadn't been issued, and from subsidiaries whose financials didn't match the consolidated accounts. The inflated figure across those 2 years alone, $78 billion. Meanwhile, something else was quietly building. In August 2020, Beijing launched its 3 red lines policy, a new set of debt limits designed to cool the overheated property sector. Evergrande failed all 3. Its debt-to-asset ratio, net debt-to-equity ratio, and cash-to-short-term debt ratio were all in the red. The company was legally barred from taking on new borrowing, but it needed new borrowing to survive. Evergrande began pressuring employees to buy its wealth management products. Some workers invested their life savings under duress. The company was no longer borrowing from banks. It was borrowing from its own staff. That was the moment the machine started breaking down, and it couldn't be hidden much longer. On September 23, 2021, Evergrande missed a $83.5 million interest payment on its offshore bonds. Then another, and another. The word that no one in Beijing wanted to say out loud was suddenly everywhere: default. Evergrande's share price on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, which had already fallen 80% over the previous year, went into free fall. Trading was suspended and resumed, suspended and resumed. Thousands of retail investors watched their savings evaporate in real time. Across China, construction sites went silent. Concrete mixers stopped turning. Suppliers who hadn't been paid for months began filing lawsuits. Hundreds of thousands of homebuyers who had paid in full for apartments that existed only on paper gathered outside Evergrande sales offices demanding answers. Some held up their sales contracts. Others wept on camera. The contagion spread. Chinese property developers, Fantasia Holdings, Cynic Holdings, and China Properties Group all defaulted within weeks. The sector that had been the engine of China's economy was seizing. The People's Bank of China injected liquidity. The government quietly arranged asset transfers. But for Evergrande's creditors, holding over $300 billion in claims, there was no bailout. In August 2025, after a 3-year restructuring process that went nowhere, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange delisted Evergrande for good. Shares had lost 99% of their value. Caixin was placed under police control in September 2023. He was formally arrested the following year. His April 2026 trial in Shenzhen lasted 2 days. He pled guilty to all charges. The sentencing is pending. Prosecutors have requested life imprisonment. The PricewaterhouseCoopers story did not end quietly either. Hong Kong's accounting regulator fined PwC $6.1 million, its largest ever fine, for its auditing failures on Evergrande. PwC resigned as Evergrande's auditor in January 2024. But no PwC partner was criminally charged. The firm continues to operate globally. The people who paid the real price were the 1.3 million homebuyers. Many are still waiting. Some projects are being completed under government supervision. Most are not. Families who spent entire lifetimes saving for an apartment are growing old in rental rooms. China's property sector has never recovered. Land sales, once the primary source of local government revenue, collapsed, triggering a fiscal crisis in dozens of Chinese cities. The GDP drag continues. What Evergrande revealed is not a uniquely Chinese problem. It is the logic of any system where debt is disguised as asset, where auditors are paid by the people they audit, and where the assumption of too big to fail protects the architects of failure until it's too late. Subscribe and follow Macro Scale, because this story is never really over. See you next time.